Before we leave the land of hallucinations, which sounds like a Yellow Submarine album or something like that, we did an episode, 21 Ways That AI Can Hallucinate in Your Legal Brief. And, at the top, of course, is it invents the case. And that's the one that we're most familiar with. But then you go down, sometimes the pin sites are hallucinated. Sometimes the quote's a little bit distorted. But then you go all the way down, and sometimes they just give you the wrong, instead of it being clear and convincing as the standard, it'll say preponderance of evidence. And we've seen that. Do you feel that there should be a sliding scale of culpability for hallucinations coming up in a legal brief? Or no, read the case, quote the case, file the brief, and move on, which, by the way, would be my position, but I'm not the judge.
So between dropping an inaccurate citation in support of a proposition or an inaccurate pin site in support of a proposition and quoting a case or making a multiple page legal argument based upon a case that either doesn't exist or a statute that isn't actually there or a proposition which actually the case doesn't actually support, and yet that is the crux of your argument. You can't trust AI to give you the statute that you want it to say. That's just not necessarily the thing. So I think there is not economies of scale. That's about, I'm trying to think of the official economic word, but I do think there is a difference between a simple inaccurate cite and a relied upon as authoritative authority, which doesn't exist. And there are differences in caliber or size of the inaccurate statement.
All right, now we can leave hallucinations and the UAE recently issued AI protocols and instituted AI mechanisms for all of its judiciary across the country because they believe that the time has come to standardize that and to implement that nationwide in their courts. What do you think about that? Do you think that's something that we ought to do here?
I think we have a lot of judges with lifelong tenure. I think we have a centralized overseeing council, the Judicial Council, which is headed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, or Judicial Conference, sorry. But I don't think we're necessarily set up as a judiciary the same way as the UAE is set up. While we have the Judicial Conference, which can make promulgations of certain policies and can make certain changes, one of the hallmarks of the system is that our judges are given a lot of individual discretion on how they run their courtrooms, how they run their hearings, how they run their trials, how they run their chambers. And I don't believe we're the exact same system. So if there's going to be anything, I think it would have to come through the formal federal rules or a statute or the formal establishment procedures, which is a number of steps, which require comments and all of those things. And I mean, if you practice in any jurisdiction that has more than one judge, and frankly, you practice in a jurisdiction with one judge who has me, myself, and I, sometimes they don't all agree. And so I'm not sure you're ever going to get all the judiciary to sign off on the same rule. I mean, one example is after the Northern Pipeline decision, invalidating the grant of authority to bankruptcy judges in the 1978 code, the Supreme Court gave Congress 4 months to fix the problem. And what ended up happening is that the judiciary scrambled and came up with the emergency rule of 1982, which then it took Congress 2.5 more years to pass in the 1984 amendments to the code. And even that, still, we don't necessarily know what arising in, arising under related to is, because then we have Stern v. Marshall, which gives us constitutionally and statutorily core, and those are two different concepts. So could Congress make the rule? I don't know. Could the Supreme Court dictate that Congress make a rule? I don't know. Could the Civil Rules Committee pass a civil rule? I don't know. But I do think we have a very, very different system than you find in just some places like the UAE, which have a more centralized control over their judiciary and that's one of the hallmarks of our judiciary, and it's one of the reasons it's hard to put all the cats in the same bag.